that, but just for the record and for the community, could you just briefly explain what is meant by that?
We're obliged by law to take a vote if we do not want to participate. If we participate, the school choice mechanisms as they exist at present will require the communities that send children to us to pay tuition to us. And vice versa, if our kids go to another district, we have to pay tuition out to them. And what it ends up doing is eating into the budget of those districts who are sending children, whether they have the resources to do it or not. And frankly, if you take one child out of a classroom, you don't get to save the full cost of educating that child. You still have the same number of classrooms that you're running. And as long as this program is structured in a way that punishes sending districts, chances are those are the districts that already need the most help, and that's why the kids are being transferred out. And then on top of that, you get the fact that the only kids that are really leaving are the ones whose parents can best afford to get them to this new district and so forth. It's actually counterproductive economically for the goal of educating all of the children of the Commonwealth.
We have a motion by Mr. Derby and a second by Mrs. Davis to not participate in the school choice program. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. And I don't honestly know how I skipped over the school budget, which should have come after school building projects, but I'd like to get into that. Right now, I do just want to quickly make a brief statement about the vote last week, and just say quickly that I'm sad and disappointed for our students and our great staff, because they're the ones that will be paying the consequences of last week's vote. I understand where many residents of this town are coming from and what their vote is based on. We've seen an increase in costs in gasoline and other things in our lives. But again, it was a sad and disappointing day for me, and I think for our children and our staff. It seems to me we have short memories in North Reading. Only 5 years ago, I believe it was 2002, an operating budget override failed, and the administration cut back in several areas, including physical education, art, music, technology, and the libraries. I believe at that time we also increased fees, and we've increased fees since then. We had an override that passed in 2004, and we were able to recover from those cuts to get to the point where we are today. But I think Tuesday's vote puts everything into reverse, and much of the progress we have made is going to disappear. But the town's spoken, and now we have to implement the cuts required to live within this budget. I've said this over and over again, and I'm not going to stop until the town understands our situation. We have no frills in the school system. We're currently 8th from the bottom in the state in terms of per pupil spending. Our staff and administration has done incredible work in terms of the results we have seen, but things are slipping in certain areas, and I honestly don't know how much longer we can continue to succeed with the limited resources we have. And my guess is not much longer without additional resources. We'll continue to do our best. I know our staff and our teachers will, to educate our children to the best of their abilities, and we'll continue to push the state and federal government to help solve the public education funding crisis. But in the meantime, we'll implement the cuts required for next year based on the available funds budget, and sadly, the town will not be better for it. So I just wanted to make that brief statement on the vote, and can move into discussion now. Dr. Troten? You've given us a list of...
Yes, I have. I've met, as I said earlier, a good part of Thursday, and pretty much all day today, and we'll be meeting again on Thursday of this week, and as long as it's needed to begin to put this into practice. We are under somewhat of a time constraints with notification of staff, so I do want to notify the school committee that I am moving forward Wednesday and Thursday of this week to bring about those layoffs. And that's done primarily because state law and our contract says that teachers who do not have professional teacher status need to be notified in writing by June 15th.
Well, they need time to go
Right.
somewhere else to work if they...
We will, I know the principals will have spoken to anyone affected by this, and then I will personally meet with individuals as well. So I'm gonna read down the areas that we'll be reducing in. And what is important to remember is that although I'm going to say in certain cases it's a reduction of a particular program, because of contract language for teachers who do have professional teacher status, basically there's a bumping. And so there may be a consequence when you eliminate a position in one school, may actually end up with someone else in another school, and then you have to shift people around. So there will be many more positions affected, and particularly with music, art, physical education, technology, art, and so forth. There will be a tremendous amount of traveling because of the part-time nature of some of these positions. But
We not only lose their time, but we lose some extra time
You
for
do.
travel.
So it's a real juggling act, and we're gonna work very hard to try to put that puzzle together, but I don't have all the pieces yet. So the first step is to bring about the reductions. And again, this is working within the framework of the amount of money that we have. So anyway, staff reductions, we will reduce. We have 2 integrated technology teachers. One works elementary and another works middle and high school. Their role is to work directly with teachers and students on the integration and use of technology. A simple question came up today. We have invested money in what's called the Kurzweil Reader Program. It's used in special education. It is a hardware and software that allows any text or most text to be read to students who are experiencing reading difficulty. We actually integrate this now on the MCAS test. It's an allowed modification, but it takes a tremendous amount of technology know-how, how to work with teachers who are using that and setting that up. That's just one of hundreds of kinds of examples of what these 2 individuals do. So we're reducing that by 50%. We will reduce physical education at the elementary level. We have 3 elementary, actually 2.8 elementary PE teachers that provide physical education in kindergarten through grade 5 twice a week. We're going to provide physical education once a week in grades 1 to 5 and the full-day kindergarten. We will not provide it in the half-day kindergarten program. And it's also a 50% reduction of time.
So there'll be no phys ed in the
No
half-day
phys ed in the
kindergarten?
half-day program. We will not have sufficient numbers of staff because we're eliminating 1 out of the 2.8. And we're concerned, or the principals are concerned, that can we actually manage it 1 time a week, given the number of sections that we have to teach. So that's 1 30-minute period from 2 30-minute periods, the 50% reduction. Similarly, we will lay off 1 elementary classroom music teacher. We will reduce elementary, subsequent program reductions are listed below. So music also will be reduced from twice a week. This is a classroom instruction to 1 period a week.
Can you tell us what that, each reduction, what the remaining staff number is?
The remaining staff would be 2.
2, okay, so we have 3 full-time now, okay.
Well, and one of the teachers at the little school also does instrumental music
Right.
for that school.
Right.
The instrumental lessons in the 4th and 5th grade and the band program. So what we're going to have, the current, if you're a music teacher, your assignment is to do the two 30-minute periods per week. And in kindergarten through grade 5. So what will be left here would be one period of classroom instruction in music following the state framework in grades 1 to 5 and the full day kindergarten. It will not be in the half-day kindergarten program.
So the half-day kindergartners won't be getting any music either?
No, unless the classroom teacher does it, but no formal instruction on the frameworks. And the frameworks go from pre-K to 5. So, again, it's a question of numbers here, of how many people, how many periods can we actually physically schedule in a day, and how many people do we have to teach it. Right now, the classroom music teacher teaches 2, and they're also responsible for doing the choral program, which is generally grades 3, 4, and 5. And that's, that can be grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, then the students meet as a period. The music teacher would also put on the performances, but it takes a lot of practice. And so by dropping this number, it's a scheduling problem. We will not have sufficient staff when you're eliminating 1 out of basically 3 to provide the level of program that we've had in the past. And then we will reduce 0.8 elementary art. Now, we have 3 art teachers. Each school has an art teacher. Each of our elementary schools is staffed by a 0.8 teacher. So we're going to reduce 1 of them in this budget. And currently, art is taught once a week for 45 minutes in all grades, K-5. So under this scenario, we will only be able to, it's a longer block of time, and you don't start art the moment the students walk into the building. What the principals have been able to do, because there's a lot of, with materials, if you imagine that art classroom and you have first grade, the kinds of activities and the lessons that you're doing with children, the way the scheduling has worked in the school, because the teacher is school-based, the principal will try to schedule all of the 3 first grade classes in a row so that the materials can be brought out to work with those students, then on to another cluster of classes at that grade. We won't be able to achieve that if we are down by 1 of the 3 teachers. We will move from 1 45-minute period. What's being proposed is 1 period every 2 weeks, but a 60-minute, a longer period. Also, grades 1 to 5 and the full day kindergarten. So we will not be able to staff music, art, and PE for the half-day kindergarten. And it will be a 50% reduction because we're moving from once a week to once every 2 weeks. So I want to make it clear that at the elementary level, that period of time where currently 2 PE, 2 music, and 1 art, that's the period when the classroom teacher won't have children. Of course, it's not really 30 minutes because the classroom teacher has to take those children down to the room and then has to be there at the end of that 30-minute period to pick the children up. And we do give a little bit of a time period, 5 minutes in between, so that you don't have a class right at the doorstep of the classroom to start the next period. So in any event, you can see, based on the schedule, that on some weeks there will be 3 special subject periods, and in other weeks there will only be 2. We will have to provide some time in the library where there's a paraprofessional, but no teacher. And they will have to count that as we did 4 years ago and 5 years ago as instructional time, although I'm very concerned